Good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Wednesday, June 30th, 2021. And our top story today, the retirement outlook differs between employers and their employees. Well, joining me now to discuss this and a lot more, Sri Reddy is a Senior Vice President of Income Solutions for Principal Financial Group. Sri, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Yeah, Jeff, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's great to see you again. And I should say, ours is a very regulated business, and for all the right reasons. Your appearance today, you are a registered representative, and therefore everything that we're talking about is intended for educational purposes only. So Sri, with that being said, let's talk about recent survey that the Principal Group put out, authored, and there are really, divergent points of view between how employees and employers view their retirement preparations. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so this is a trend that we've seen in the retirement industry now going on 2+ decades, and that's participants generally feel better about their plan and prognosis than their plan sponsors or employers do. And we saw that in the most recent survey with almost a 20-point gap between the confidence levels that employers have versus participants have. And we attribute that to a number of reasons that we can get into. But bottom line is, I think employers realize, hey, my employees are not planning enough and preparing enough, and I'm not entirely confident they're going to have enough. Whereas participants are saying, you know what, I think I'm probably going to be better off than people think, or I'm probably more ready than not.
Yeah, obviously different points of view, and you can't, as an employer, you can't know what each of your employees is thinking. And we're going to get into ways to improve financial wellness and readiness. But let's talk about why there might be a kind of a disconnect between, or a divergence, if you will, between these 2 points of views.
Yeah, there are a number of reasons, but I'll tee up what we believe are the top 3 or 4 reasons. First and foremost, we know in this country that the average American changes employers every 3+ years or so. Now, why is that important to recognize? The 401k balance and the 401k account that an employer sees may not be a full picture of everything the participant has. That's point 1. Point 2, even though we in the industry earmark certain balances for retirement, individuals don't necessarily think about it that way. They have all sorts of rainy day buckets, including their home equity, that they factor in as part of their retirement planning. The third attribute I'll tee up is, and we've all been seeing this, we've been on the end of a bull market run that's been going on now for the better part of 12, 13 years. Stock market valuations are an all-time high. I think people's wealth effect is representing that. And people, when they feel wealthier, generally feel like they're more prepared. And the last one I'll tee up for your audience is in something I'm a big believer in, is human and personal resilience. There are a number of adjustments that individuals can make that are not necessarily academically guided, but that will help them bounce back and probably give them more confidence than employers can see based on all the needs and awareness that they have.
Yeah, really good analysis there and good assertions. Let's talk about this pandemic. Obviously horrific for a lot of reasons. Health, a lot of financial stress for many Americans, maybe losing their job, being furloughed, et cetera. And the government in some ways stepped up to help. But how much of a impact in terms of the divergence, the points of view, was the pandemic?
So I think one of the really more important points of awareness we need to create is when you think about people who offer a 401k plan, it's much more prevalent with larger employers. Employers that have less than 500 employees have a much lower rate of participating and providing a 401k plan at the work site. That's important to recognize because this pandemic has completely been unbalanced. It's affected smaller employers who are in the service industry that typically employ a disproportionate amount of women and minorities over other groups. So while we're asking the question, I think the impacts from COVID aren't necessarily fully reflected in the numbers.
Yeah, and is it your thesis, just to kind of follow up for that for a second, is it your thesis that, we don't know the impact of COVID, right? Just like we don't know the long-term effects of COVID from a healthcare perspective, we don't know what the financial prognosis is going to be. We think we do, just based on prior experiences with other issues, other challenges, but we don't know what we don't know.
We don't, Jeff. I mean, let's look at even the short-term impacts. I have a hunch that masks will become more mainstream and are probably going to stay longer than people expect. Are people who are looking at their employment and saying, well, I don't have to live in a particular city. I don't have to work for an employer that's local. So my opportunity set might be wider. There's others who are saying, I've lost a loved one unexpectedly. Do I really want to reframe what my priorities are? So COVID is impacting people in very different fashions, depending on your experience and proximity to it. But I agree with you that there are a lot more unknown unknowns than there are known unknowns.
Yeah, and welcome to the reality is that we don't know what we don't know, and we never will unless you have a crystal ball or one of those 8 balls. Shri, I guess last question for this segment, and want to get you're out there, maybe not physically right now, but you and the team at Principal are talking with employers, plan sponsors of retirement plans. You're a major record-keeping organization, a major asset management and annuity company. What are some of the solutions that you're seeing in terms of trying to help right this divergence, this difference of opinion?
Yeah, and what I've teed up to your audience in the past and through other media as well is there's 4 things that I focus on. That's access to a work site-based savings plan, participation, adequacy, and addressing longevity. And unless all 4 pieces of the pie or puzzle are addressed, it's really hard to solve for a problem that gets people to and through retirement in a meaningful fashion. So let's talk about what those 4 things mean and how advisors and others can help employers do this. First and foremost, we know that if you have a work site-based plan, it works. People fundamentally participate if they have access to one. But to my earlier point, smaller employers don't necessarily offer them. They'll say it's not necessarily in demand, it's too complex to offer, the administrative burden's high. The good news is there's pooled employer plans. There's vehicles like that are coming out that offer smaller employers to have the same cost and pricing advantages that larger employers do and make these things available. So that's first and foremost. The second is you need to have conversations to encourage participation. So whether you do that through default mechanisms, auto-enrollment, re-enrollment, there have been lots of things and guidance from the DOL and others, including the Secure Act, which makes it easier for plan sponsors to help make those the choice architecture easier for participants. The third one, and I'm really excited about this, years ago when default language came out, DOL and others use a 3% example. You can default people in a 3%. And for example, unless you turn it off, they continue to contribute. Well, we all know being in the industry, 3% is not going to cut it. 3% doesn't solve any amount of number. And if you get closer to that 10% mark is where it's actually going to be meaningful. And I think we've seen both in our own data, the more, even if you increase the default rate, the opt-out rates are still about the same. So with the advent of Secure, CARES Act, even giving the ability for people to save more early on and save more longer because of delayed RMDs and the like will help with adequacy. And so we've solved access, participation, and adequacy. Now we're going to talk about longevity. Secure Act, although the timing because of COVID wasn't optimal, really had some interesting provisions in it, from both the lifetime income illustration to an annuity safe harbor, as well as some portability language. And I think although COVID created a chilling effect on the marketplace, given the uncertainty, I think employers, this is a prime time to start investigating options and for advisors to become experts to start having those conversations as well.
Yeah, and you tee up, I need to go to a quick commercial break, Shri, but you tee up perfectly what we're going to talk about in the second segment. When we come back, we'll talk to Shri and learn more about how employers and financial professionals can really have an impact on employee retirement outlook and outcomes. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. We're talking to Sri Reddy, Senior Vice President of Income Solutions for Principal Financial Group. Sri, thanks for staying with us this morning.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, and I should add, just to kind of pick back up what I said, Sri is a registered representative. Everything that we're talking about is intended for educational purposes. All right, Sri, let's jump in. We talked about, kind of hinted at this, about employers and what they can do. Let's talk about record keepers like Principal, solutions that they're offering to the financial professional community to be aware of, but also to employers in terms of implementing in their retirement programs.
Yeah, there's a number of things I think we in the record-keeping industry are doing, but I'll tell you, first and foremost, making the experience simple for both employers, plan sponsors, and participants is paramount. You can't make it complex, whether it's a web login, whether it's a presentation of multiple accounts, whether it's providing asset allocation guidance, whether it's providing education or the like. So at Principal, we're extremely proud that we continue to drive and innovate tools and experiences. Not only are they award-winning, but there's actually more pride that we get from the actual utilization rates that we see from participants. These things make a difference. Talking to people in a language and a voice they can understand actually drives increased contribution, drives better behaviors. We saw this even through the pandemic, where people didn't withdraw nearly as much as one would have expected with uncertainty. So all these little steps help. Something else we clearly do at Principal Financial Group, but we do this on behalf of the industry as well, is advocate for both employers, participants, and worksite-based savings plan with regulators and policymakers. It's really, really important in any environment, but more so in environments where there's tax policy changes and other things that are being contemplated, to make sure our policymakers know how much these plans and benefits really mean to employers and plan participants, and how they're working well as they're intended.
Sri, when one of the very important things that record keepers like Principal do is around employee engagement. And I have to think that with new technology, we're using Zoom to communicate. There are ways to refresh the tactics for employee engagement. Any thoughts there?
I think you're absolutely right. We're always exploring new technology. In fact, we launched something called Principal Real Start, which one of the stats I love to quote is it's led to a 65% higher deferral rate. That's just in the 1 year period for over the year 2020. But whether it's Real Start or other tools that we innovate, we're looking to do one of three things. We want to either educate participants, We want to engage people who are otherwise not paying as much attention to their plan or their plan analysis. And we're also analyzing the data that we have to make sure we're relevant in how we speak to them and we're connecting with them the times that matter the most.
And Shrey, how do these advanced, I'll call them advanced tactics, that's my word, not yours, these ability to get people more engaged, how will this help with long-term retirement readiness, along with some plan design features and things that are embedded in the new Secure Act to help improve retirement readiness?
Yeah, so there's a ton of things embedded in the Secure Act, including lifetime income options. Now, we know that these type of solutions, while they serve real needs, can be complex, especially for employees who don't understand them or who don't have a familiarity. So we're looking at how can we leverage technology to create mass customization, a singular experience that feels very personal, and that helps educate participants on the features and attributes and making sure they have all access to all the information they need to make informed decisions.
Shrey, one thing that we're seeing more of a conversation around is student loan repayment programs, emergency savings programs. Are these part of the solution as well? They're kind of baked together. I don't know, it's kind of not a great name, not a great metaphor, but it's kind of brought together. It's not just about retirement readiness. It's about all these things kind of focusing on helping the employee.
Yeah, truth be told, we're in this industry and we think about retirement and financial planning all the time. For the average human being, retirement is a long, distant, dated concept. And most people can't actually envision themselves in retirement or know how long they're going to live. And because it seems so far away, it's hard to make it meaningful and engage with them. That's even made worse when you have other immediate concerns, whether it's paying for your kids' education, paying off your own debt, making sure that you have enough for a rainy day. So these conversations all happen in tandem. And what we're trying to help them do is prioritize and make the right decisions so they're not leaving money on the table, they're tax optimizing where they can, but they're taking care of their whole holistic life picture.
Yeah, and Shrey, I want to dedicate the last part of this segment to the financial professional. These are individuals who are either working with the employer as a independent advisor consultant, or they're working one-on-one with employees. What role do they have in the mix?
First and foremost, I think raising awareness with your employers on all of the different legislation and policy changes that are coming, and also the optionality and products and services that are available to help your employees, I think is paramount. I know over the last 10 years, a focus on fees and expenses has been the area that most advisors have gone to it. Truth be told, fees are important, right? Anytime you can pay less for a service, that's great. But if the fees are low, but you're not delivering protection, you're not delivering the outcomes, you're not delivering the value, well, that's the other end of the spectrum. So making sure that you're raising the awareness with plan sponsors, having them look at their plan design, and making sure the plan design is working for their employee base, not just the investment lineup and not just some elements of the plan. And oh, by the way, recognizing that some portion of your participants will probably stay in the plan long after they're retired. How are you adding features, guarantees? For example, a principal, we offer something called the Principal Pension Builder, which is a personal defined income annuity within the worksite plan. How are you making sure plan sponsors understand what their options are? And oh, by the way, on top of it all, let's help them understand what their balance is actually translated into in terms of lifetime income. So if they're not saving enough, we get that message to them early on.
Yeah, and I have to think that there's data that's available when you're a financial professional. Either you're working individually or you're working together with the employer. You know, you're part of those quarterly meetings to review the plan. Having access to data to show, basically be able to benchmark the plan and be able to target, right? Be able to take that information and say, well, we have this group, this population of people that maybe we should target, and let's see how we do over time with targeting them.
No question. And if you're a financial professional that does business with Principal Financial, we can help as well. Being one of the 3 largest providers of retirement plans in the industry, we have access to nearly 10 million participants' data. And we know the steps that plan sponsors can take to drive better utilization and better participant outcomes.
Yeah. Well, Sri, really interesting conversation. Really enjoyed speaking with you and learning more about the information you and Principal are gathering and continue to gather. We appreciate you coming on, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Yeah, thank you for having me on BRN. We'll chat soon. Take care.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the information in retirement, markets, technology, personal finance, so much more, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. We're back again tomorrow for another exciting, educational, and entertaining edition of BRN AM. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.